Welcome back. My name is Chris Sachinelli. I get to build, buy, and sell simple profit businesses every single day. And today we're going to be talking about how you, as a business owner, can add meaningful amounts of equity inside of your business. Originally, I had 6 or 7 figures, but after second thought, I said asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. This is realistically more of an approach-based bespoke to you, right? So regardless of where you are on your journey of building, buying, and selling, whether you're at the first exit and you're just getting started, or you're at exit number 5 and you're getting ready to sell, or somewhere in the middle, right? Building a better business. Regardless, you can take action and you could build meaningful amounts of equity inside of your business. And then based on the size and the scope and the stage, that meaningful amount changes, right? So asterisk here, this is going to be bespoke to you. This is going to be meaningful to you at your stage. However, the approach of how you can build equity inside of your business is fairly standardized across business. Now, asterisk there, it's not going to be standardized across all types of businesses and industries. However, for the most part, if you're building a profit-led business, right, if you're focusing on putting profit in your pocket, this is going to be a good video for you. You're going to want to watch all the way through, and we'll get into some meaningful information, right? So first and foremost, when we talk about meaningful amounts of equity, what do we mean? Like, how do we put equity inside of our business? How do we build equity inside of the business? We have this term at Bootstrapper Capital that we love to use to actually identify like what this means, what is, and we call it wedge equity, right? So if you look at your business, say this is the value of your business, right? This is the value of your business over time, right? So you have time down here on the, what is this, x-axis, and value of your business on the y. Hopefully it's increasing over time, right? Now, let's say that time keeps moving forward and the value of your business doesn't increase. That's going to be this baseline of the red, right? Current value as is. Now, let's say that you're able to increase the value of your business over time. If you're increasing the value of your business by focusing on building or unlocking wedge equity inside your business, then the value is going to go up over time. And the difference between what it would have been worth if you did nothing versus what it would be worth if you actually focused, because strategy equals focus, the thing in the middle here, this yellow wedge, is quite literally the equity you could build. So you can quite literally build wedge equity in your business. You could build a more valuable business. You can unlock value inside your business. In fact, I'm a fervent believer in the fact that you could put us, our team, or me inside of any business any day, as long as it's a profit-led business, following very simple types of, rocket science, AI, crazy futuristic type of stuff. If it has foundational principles of just building a better business, of a basic business, you could build wedge equity inside of any business, right? And there's a fundamental reason why, and that reason is because there's an equation to build wedge equity. Just like in math, 2 + 2 = 4, it is what it is. You could build wedge equity by just following the formula. And the formula that we've come up with over time, because we've been doing this for a really long time, and we know that simple works, but simple is not really easy. The concept of building a more valuable business, very complicated, very complex. It's a big lift. It's a big ask, right? It's a huge endeavor. What we've endeavored to do ourselves is to simplify this process. You can control process, you can't control outcome. So we wanted to distill it into a process to follow. And in order to follow a process, we simplified it into a very simple equation to be able to focus. So we focus on brand equity, and we'll focus on operational equity. And we believe that brand equity times operational equity equals the wedge equity that you can unlock. And I'll get into an explanation of what this equation means and how it makes sense, right? So when we talk about impact of this formula or utilization of this formula, from the brand equity perspective, what we're really talking about is the money multiple. So when you're selling your business, right, we own simplebroker.ai, which is a business brokerage that helps folks buy and sell businesses. We're the simplest place to find and finance your next acquisition. It's in our portfolio at Bootstrapper Capital. And one of the things that we do is help businesses get to a valuation. We help to understand where the market's at, right? What businesses are trading and why, because there's a why behind it. And that's what we're really trying to get to here. So typically when you're looking at what a business is worth or what it's trading at, it ties back to a money multiple to a certain extent. So the first thing you're asking yourself is, what is the multiple for my business, right? What is my business trading at? And when I say a money multiple, I mean quite literally, you're taking either your seller discretionary earnings, your EBITDA, sometimes your revenue. What are we actually multiplying? We tend to back into seller discretionary earnings, but there's a multiple for pretty much everything, and we've seen it all happen. But you're taking something like a seller's discretionary earnings, right, which is kind of very similar to profit in your pocket as a business owner. It's normalizing your EBITDA. It's normalizing your profit. It's putting back in, things that are like a one-time expense into the business that may not be, a standardized annualized occurrence. Things like if an owner is taking on expenditures that should really be more on their personal P&L and they're putting on the business P&L, right? So you're normalizing the earnings of that business, and then you're going to take a multiple. You're going to take a multiplying effect of that. You're going to add a multiple. And I didn't add it to this presentation, but based off of industry and based off of stage of business, the multiples change. So the first thing you want to know is, what are we factoring, right? You need to know what it is that you're paying attention to, because a multiple on seller discretionary earnings is different than a multiple on revenue. And you need to know what your market is looking at. What does your market pay attention to? What are buyers in your market baselining off of, right? Because markets get made. Prices don't just come out of thin air. Prices are made, they're manufactured because buyers take a consistent type of approach to pricing an asset. Because once I buy an asset, I need to be able to improve an asset, and then hopefully one day I'll be able to sell that asset again. And by benchmarking and baselining in a standardized manner, markets get made in the fact that I can feel confident that what I pay is going to be similar to the approach that somebody else pays, right? So I can make better decisions. So you need to know your market, right? You need to know your market and what the multiple is in your market and what it's baselined off of. But that then becomes your brand equity that you're focusing on, and you're going to grow that money's multiple. So the focus is to increase the multiple and increase whatever is being baselined, SDE, EBITDA, revenue, whatever, right? Second step is to then focus on operational equity, right? Because this equation was two parts. It was brand equity and operational equity. The brand equity is the money multiple. The operational equity is the risk ratio. Many folks get confused, and we oftentimes hear clients that we work with talking about, oh, my business is worth a multiple of SDE, for example. And they think that that's all. They think that that's what it is. Not the case. And when you go into a transaction and you're not educated to the point that markets get made and then prices get made on the buy side, right? Price is just simply what somebody's willing to pay, right? That's typically where you'll get beat up on a deal. And the you got beat up either on terms or you get beat up on price. And it's better to get beat up on price than terms, to be honest, but something's going to give somewhere. And that's because there's risk. There's always risk in a deal. There's always hair on a deal. And if you can't diligence a deal thoroughly, right? So depending upon the market you're trading at, sometimes the cost of diligence is too high to even do a thorough diligence, right? So there's always a why. You got to figure out the why and get to the why, get to the root. That's a lot of what today's conversation and presentation is about, is trying to get to the why. We'll get to the why in a couple of slides here in terms of why we want to understand this stuff and how we can leverage it to be able to reverse engineer what we want. But you get to the why, and once you discover the why, you can make good, timely decisions. So in operational equity, we're focusing on what the risk is of the deal. Because if there's risk inside of a deal, then somebody's going to want a discount on it, right? I'm not going to, it's like the discount fruit at the grocery store. I'm not paying full ticker for a tomato that's half rotten. It's not valued the same, right? So we want to understand what the discount that a buyer is going to ask for, or how they're assessing what a discount should be or could be when making a purchase decision on that asset, on that business. And you're thinking about things like, how transferable is my business, right? Is it easy for somebody to pick it up? Is it easy for somebody to pick it up and then start operating? Is it really a liability, or is it actually an asset? right? Is this something that somebody, an investor, can buy, park their capital, and then get a return, right? Future cash flow on that capital? Or is it a job? Is it something they're going to have to roll up their sleeves and put in the hard work, right? Just show up every single day and turn it into an asset. Like, what are they buying? Because based off of what it is will impact the value, the price, right? What it's worth. And you're either going to get beat up on price, which is for some reason what sellers care about the most. I don't know why. It's not really, I don't really care about price. It's not what you pay, it's the terms that you get paid within, right? I'd be more than happy. For some reason, I have a cuffling on my desk right here, so I just picked it up. I'll be more than happy to pay $1 million for this cuffling if I'm paying over 100 million years, right? It's really more the terms than the price that you really got to care about. But the reason why, getting to the why in terms of why you want to understand brand equity and operational equity, the money's multiple and the risk ratio, is because by understanding the buy side perspective, what's the fact that price is what somebody else is willing to pay. If you understand how somebody's looking at it, then you can reverse engineer building the equity inside of your business while you still retain possession and control of it. So if you're in the process of getting exit ready, which the reality is we're all exiting at some point, right? We're all exiting, regardless of whether or not we want to accept it. Every business is always exiting, right? We believe at Bootstrapper Capital that there's 5 exits of ownership. In the community over at Bootstrapper Community, we help folks master the 5 exits of ownership, unlock value, put more profit in your pocket, right? Because you're always exiting. You're always exiting out of something. You're either exiting out of, doing the work, right? First, you're exiting out of a job, so you're in a business, right? Then you're exiting out of doing the work by hiring a team. Then you're exiting out of managing people by building a business system. Then you're exiting out of running the business by placing leadership or an operator. And then eventually you're going to exit out of the business, maybe entirely, and sell it, right? So you're always exiting. We're all always exiting. By understanding the process of valuation, by understanding the approach, right, that somebody's going to take in terms of buying or looking at your business and assessing what it's worth, you can reverse engineer building the equity inside of it. So change your perspective, change your approach. From an approach perspective, it's like identify the pain, right? Where's the constraints on the deal? Where's the constraints on the business? What's impacting the value negatively, right? Then remove it, fix it, right? So first step is it's a 3-step process, because why would it be more complicated than that, right? It's really actually very complicated in actual, like when you're actually going to execute, when you're going to do this stuff. But from a high level concept perspective, we can really simplify it. It can really be as simple as 1, 2, 3. First step, value the business. Now, valuing the business, there's a difference between going to some business broker or maybe some online marketplace now, because there's a lot of those, and like typing in some of your information and then them spitting back out a business valuation. Some of them have valuation tools for free, right? There's difference between that and then actually working through with somebody like our team over at Simple Broker or Simple Profits to actually design a true valuation, identifying all of the key drivers of your business and the value levers inside of that business. And then assessing risk ratios, assessing on a score basis, 0 to 10, where it stands, and then getting to a numerical score on averages that then derive a true valuation based off of a number of critical data points, right? There's a difference between a real valuation of a business, like the valuation that a buyer like us at Bootstrapper Capital, we buy businesses, right? There's a difference between what somebody who's diligencing a deal to buy it will say or look at or care about versus like, a phone at home type of valuation. You want a true diligence on the business, on your business. You want to know what a potential true buyer is really thinking when they look at your business, because you want to know the weaknesses. You want to know where you should focus, because strategy equals focus, to make the improvements that are necessary to actually, again, unlock value and build wedge while you're still in control and still have possession of this asset. And you have the ability to unlock value, right? So you want to know that information. So we start with a value of the business, complete a in-depth valuation. In that in-depth valuation, you're identifying the gaps, because the inverse, again, reverse engineering of equity, the inverse of why my business is worth this becomes where I need to focus to improve that value, right? So if I'm, again, looking at it from a money multiple and a risk ratio perspective, it's like, what do I need to do to get it to from a 1x to a 1.5x to a 2x, right? So how am I growing the money multiple, right? You want to know that. You want to know the milestones to be able to build into, right? So how am I growing the money multiple? If I need to, maybe it's a diversification of the customer base, right? If I add another 30 customers or 100 customers to my portfolio of customers, will that change from a 1.5 multiple to a 2x multiple? And then what's the impact in terms of the value of the business and how much equity was built by a simple focused task of adding X number of more customers? Example, that's a simple example to just demonstrate what I mean. Same with the risk ratio. If I know why there's risk on the deal, then I just got to fix the risk, right? Fill the gaps. So first, it's value the business. So you want to know the why, like what is it? Then you want to identify the gaps, what's impacting that value. And then you just want to fill or remove the gaps, build a better business. But it's not just generically building a better business. It's building a better business with intention and focus, right? Intentionality, purpose, right? The purpose is to build better so you can unlock value, build wedge equity. Because it's not just like this random thing. It's actually formulaic. It turns out you can actually, figure out how to build wedge equity. There's a formula behind it, right? So that's the approach in terms of what levers to pull in that approach, because again, it's simple from a high level perspective. It's like you could share this information and it makes sense. It's like, okay, I get that, right? People buy things for a certain reason. There's a reason why it's priced what it is. And if it's not priced fully, right? If that tomato's on sale, it's because it's rotten. Like, can I fix that or not? You know what I mean? And sometimes you can't. And it's okay. You got to accept that, but it's better to know. And then sometimes you can, right? And you should know that. Maybe the tomato is just dirty and you just got to wash it a little bit, right? So it's like, first you got to know the approach. Then in terms of the actual step number 3, which is fill or remove the gaps, that's where rubber meets road. And that's where it starts to get a little bit more technical and experience comes into play. And you really kind of need to know what to do in order to pull the right levers so that you can actually build incremental wedge equity, right? So from a brand equity perspective, what we like to focus on is customer acquisition, then it's customer retention, then it's diversification of the customer, right? So customer acquisition is all about acquiring customers. So you need to acquire more customers cheaper, right? Like that's the name of the game there. Who can ever acquire the most customers for the longest period of time tends to win. So it's like you either need to build a better business where you have more profit margin to acquire customers at a greater cost, better than your competition, put them out of business and you win over time, or you figure out strategic ways to acquire customers for cheaper, or you do both, right? But there's always a better business to build. From acquiring customers perspective, we break it down to the 4 pillars of customer acquisition. So we're trying to figure out what somebody's doing in terms of cold relationships, warm relationships, earned relationships, and paid relationships. Cold, they don't know you, right? There's a pool of leads out there that could be buyers, but they don't know who you are and you don't know them. There's no relationship. It's cold, right? Warm relationships, there's a pool of leads out there that could be buyers, and at least they know who you are. Maybe they're subscribers on your YouTube channel, for example, right? Earned relationships, you earned it. It's a customer. You gave them a delightful experience. They go tell their neighbor, right? They refer you some business. Earned. Paid, instead of having earned it through delivery of service, you're simply exchanging some money for a referral. So you go to Zuck and you go to Meta and you say, hey, I'll give you, $100. You give me a lead, right? So you got four ways to acquire customers. You want to optimize those, so you're going to focus there. Then you have retention strategies. The 9 C's of retention are ways that we've identified that you could build a better business to actually increase the incentive for somebody to stay a customer, as well as also increase the friction for them to leave you, which means that the longer they'll stay a customer. The name of the game around retention and value is that last one is value. It's lifetime value. You're trying to increase the lifetime value of your customer. The longer somebody's a customer, more opportunity they have to buy things from you, the more valuable they are. You're extracting more, you're delivering more value. And by delivering more value, you're extracting more revenue from them, right? So you want to increase the lifetime value of customers. It's always far cheaper to retain a customer, especially a good customer, right? It's cheaper to retain a good customer, specifically by giving them more value, by growing value and up-leveling value. I don't know who it was, but a large enterprise player invested heavily into a case study analysis of what's the cheapest way to actually continue to retain customers over a longer period of time. And what they found was just continue to sell them stuff. Like if you just keep selling them things, they'll stay, they'll stay a customer longer. But it's value creation. You're trying to create more value, retain value, incrementally grow lifetime value. And then the last thing is diversification of customer portfolio, which is like, how many customers do I have? How many types of customers do I have? What types of things are they buying from us? So how many different types of revenue streams do we have? How many different functions of ways in which they could pay us? One time, recurring, right? Performance-based. So those are the things that you're going to focus on in order to grow your brand equity. And that's quite literally how you're not only just going to grow your revenue and hopefully at the end of the day, by building a better business, your profit, right? Or your seller's discretionary earnings, but it also will be what takes you from being like a 1.2 time multiple to a 2 times multiple. Because again, it's a matrix, and there's things that impact it based on your stage, right? The size, these functions and factors. So you can actually grow the multiple. On the operational equity side of things, you're trying to reduce risk in the business, right? So you want it to make it the number one goal in terms of building operational equity. You're doing it for yourself, right? So you want to do it for yourself. You want to build a better business. I'd much rather have a better business while I own it, right? Better, happier, more profit in my pocket. But what you're building into as the goal line is transferability of an asset. Like you want to make this business so turnkey that you could literally go find somebody on the street and they have money in their pocket. They give you that money. You give them the keys to your business or your operating system, for example, transferability, and they can take it over and just start running it, right? Like the grandma test. It's so easy. Your grandma can do it. That is the goal of true operational equity. It's really great to build it while you own it, right? Do it for yourself. It's better to do it for yourself, but sometimes you can get caught up as a business owner. It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult to build operational equity as a business owner. The level of accountability, self-accountability you need to have is extremely high. Like quite literally do this with my life. Like this is what I've committed my life to. And when we build businesses ourselves, it's a challenge, so it's just not an easy thing. It's not really that simple. It's simple in concepts, hard in execution, right? Which sometimes the best things are in reality, especially the ones that work. So we focus on simplifying the process of an operating system. We're not trying to implement some crazy thing or over embellish what is necessary or overbuild. You really want to build to its simplest parts, right? I'd much rather be in space, for example, in a rocket ship with 3 parts where I need to master how to fix 3 parts than 3 million parts that I'll never remember. And then something breaks and I'm like, what do I do? 3 parts, I'm like, I got a good chance I can remember that. I can maybe get out of here. So it's like somebody business, simplify it, right? You want simple. So we've broken down implementing operating systems by the 5 exits. We believe that there's specific components that a business should have organizationally speaking, from an operating system perspective, to reduce risk into the business and increase transferability into the business at each of the different stages. And they're different. I mean, disclaimer, exit 4 and exit 5 are very, very similar. When you get to exit 3, it starts to become very similar to exit 4 and exit 5. Like the more mature the business is, the standardization is the case. Really, by the time you're putting in an operator or a leader at exit 4, you pretty much have a full business system. The goal at exit 3 is to get to a full business system so you can place an operator with low risk, right? Because you're trying to reduce your risk into, capitalism realistically. And then exit 5, it's all about like, how do I polish this thing up? Because it's already working, hopefully. But, exit 1 is definitely very different than exit 5 in terms of what it looks like functionally speaking, because it's a different type of business, different needs, right? The other thing that we really push and promote, there's a little bit more complexity that's not on this sheet. These are the kind of the main things, but it's usually an operating system by exit is what's important from like a business system checklist perspective. Build up that operational equity, reduce risk on the business. And then your profit-led financial accountability. Like the path to profitability is the path to cash flow for a buyer, right? Like I'm a buyer. I'm trying to put profit in my pocket, right? I'm trying to exchange the money I have today for the future cash flow, ideally, right? The future money that I'll be able to receive in disbursements from this business that I'm buying, right? So like optimizing, and this is not always the case, for whatever reason, the world got really wacky and we stopped caring about profits in 2000, when all of a sudden you put a .com after a name, but prior to that, like the world used to care about profitability. We used to have to make money to pay people to run a business. And there used to be a known factor of like, I hold the paper on a business. I hold liability. I'm holding risk. I need to be rewarded for the risk that I'm holding. And at some point in time, it wasn't, I'm holding this paper and this liability so that I could then, cash out and float the risk to the public markets in 10 years. At one point it was build a fundamentally better business. And I just believe that that's what we should be doing. We should be building better businesses from a fundamental perspective. And fundamentally speaking, businesses should throw off, free cash flow to a certain extent, right? Granted, there's different allocations and buckets that we could put our profit first into or profit-led financials into. But for the most part, we should optimize around profit-led financial accountability. It just makes a better business to buy, right? So for those reasons, it will also increase price. These are levers that pretty much anybody at any time can get into any business and start to focus on pulling. Strategy equals focus. You kind of need to know where to focus. And then, you could figure this stuff out, but it's a lot better to just kind of know like what to do fast. You don't pay a brain surgeon, a crazy hourly rate for the 15 minutes that they're in the brain. You pay them for the 50 years it took them to get the experience to go into your brain, right? You pay somebody for the amount of time to get to mastery, right? To be able to do things well. That's not to say that you can't learn this stuff yourself and focus in and be able to learn what levers to pull. It's a process though, and it's a journey. And you got to be able to commit to the process, right? Trust the process, commit to the journey. So hopefully this conversation today, going through this, hopefully it resonated. Hopefully it was valuable. Very simple in terms of approach. Value your business, identify the gaps, fill them. Know what it's worth, know why it's not worth something. Where is it being discounted? Fix it, improve it, right? At the end of the day, it can be reverse engineered, right? There's a very impact-driven formula to be able to follow. It's pretty simple. It's, you want to increase your money's multiple. You want to decrease your risk, the risk ratio, right? So brand equity times operational equity, it equals the wedge. The wedge at the end of the day is the difference between what the business would be worth if you did nothing versus if you took a little bit of action and you grow the value over time. All of that yellow here becomes profit in your pocket. It becomes profit in your pocket based off of free cash flow while you own it, right? If you're running a profit-led business, you'll put that profit in your pocket while you own the business. And then when it comes time to sell the business and exit the business, you're going to cash all of that out, right? It becomes profit in your pocket. So definitely, I think it's worthwhile to figure out how to add meaningful amounts of equity inside your business while you own the business, right? We're always exiting, whether or not we acknowledge it. As business owners, we are all always exiting. There's 5 exits of ownership that we believe. Come join us over at the Bootstrapper community, where we're mastering all 5 exits of ownership together. We build better together, put more profit in our pocket. You can get access to our whole portfolio of companies. We're building a big brand, a portfolio of brands that provide affordable and flexible solutions. Bootstrapping is in our name. We are Bootstrapper Capital, right? We build profit-led businesses. We live this life every single day. We get it. Like, we've been there. We may be there, depending on where you are, right? Everything we're building is for you. Come join us. Take advantage of it. Hopefully, we can all learn a little bit together. If you found this video valuable, please like and subscribe. Trying to build up the YouTube channel. Till next time, trust the process, commit to the journey.